stop focusing on my tie? I mean, you can focus on it, but the camera, you better stop. Hello and welcome to today's video. My name is Jonathan, and today, instead of doing a typical writing essential tools, I wanted to do a book review of the book Mortal Engines. Now, so you may notice that I'm dressed up a little bit different from my typical videos, but this is what I'm going to do when I do book reviews. I'm going to get dressed up and tell you what I think about the book. So I won't say spoiler alert because I don't think you're that stupid to click on a video like this and then be fucking surprised when I spoil parts of it. And if you are, spoiler alert. So I saw the trailer for Peter Jackson's film, The Mortal Engines, that's going to be coming out later this year. Now, me being a huge Lord of the Rings fan, at least the original trilogy, I was immediately captured by this trailer, and I'm really interested in what he's going to do with it. And I saw that it was based on a book, so I decided to go pick up the book. And if you want to take a look at the trailer that I saw, the link's going to be down in the description. I recommend, it's just like a minute and a half, so I recommend taking a look at it. It's got great graphics from what I can tell, at least the trailer does. I don't know how the film's going to hold up, but definitely check it out. Link's going to be down in the description. So The World of Mortal Engines is a steampunk dystopian young adult novel set in the distant future. I say young adult, ugh. But when reading the novel, typical YA tropes were non-existent, and the furthest from my mind. In this world, people have raised cities from the ground and retrofitted them with rolling tracks and lumbering steam engines prowling the wastes, looking for other smaller cities on tracks to devour. The main city in the story is London. Now, to the primary character, his name is Tom Natsworthy. Tom belongs to one of the guilds circulating in London called the Guild of Historians, a guild that is dedicated to collecting and maintaining artifacts of a world long gone. One day, he does something, punches a bully in the mouth.
Oh, fuck. I can't believe you've done this.
And he is sent to the lowest part of the roving city to dismantle a recently devoured town as his penance. To his surprise, Thaddeus Valentine, his supervisor and personal hero, is overlooking the dismantling of the town alongside his daughter Catherine, whom Tom has a crush on. It was odd for Valentine to be there, however, because he was a sort of celebrity in London, and for him to do something so menial just didn't make any sense. Enter our secondary character, Hester Shaw, who at first seems to be an innocent traveler, but then attempts to assassinate Thaddeus Valentine. But then Tom stops the assassination attempt, thus saving Valentine. Now, this happens in the first chapter, and it's a really interesting turn. I expected a more predictable plot with a romance between Tom and Catherine, some sort of insta-love, or if not a love triangle developing later on, and it'd have to be this complicated romance that is just boring and overdone. But after the assassination attempt, things really go downhill for Tom, and I was very intrigued and captivated by what was happening. It's a very fast-paced novel, too, and I was pleasantly surprised. So Tom chases Hester after the assassination attempt failed, and he corners her at the edge of the massive city. Then, Hester reveals her name to him, and she jumps off the city, leaving Tom speechless. Valentine catches up to Tom, and Tom tells him what she said. Then, Valentine pushes Tom off London to his death, except he did not die. So it turns out that Valentine is some sort of a bad guy, but there's more layers to him than just being the bad guy. Thus begins a chase through the hunting ground to return to the city of London and uncover a conspiracy hidden by Valentine and the Lord Mayor of London, Crome. So not the most original of names when it comes to naming bad guys, but I suppose it does achieve its purpose. Catherine Valentine is a tertiary character of sorts, and she, as Valentine's daughter, believes the hero her father is, and is naive in believing everything he does is noble, just, and right. But then she begins to piece together the mystery underlining the city of London, and perhaps her father's involvement in this conspiracy. Her arc isn't as interesting as Tom and Hester's arc, but seeing the inner workings of London, its cultural and socio-economic cast, and the technical achievements of the city on tracks, makes this deviance well worth the effort. Also, I would like to note that Catherine is constantly followed by this dog, and that's the name of her pet wolf. It's a white wolf of sorts. And it sounds like a pretty cool concept, having a tertiary character with this big bad wolf that's really kind of tame and does whatever she says, but you expect more, and you don't get that in this book. The dog doesn't do much except look intimidating, and one time in the novel, he sniffs out a clue. That's it. And there was one fight where he sort of became useful there towards the end, but it really wasn't worthwhile to remember. I just feel like Dog could have been handled better instead of just for these quick moments to solve these puzzles. There really wasn't any depth between Catherine and the dog and the wolf, I guess, whose name is Dog. I would have loved to see more of a chemistry or if not some sort of deeper relationship. It just seemed very shallow to me. Most of the time the animal is in the scene whining and sniffing, and he's kind of annoying. A little bit of wasted potential here, I think, but as a dog lover, something happens that makes me mad in the story, and I must give props to Philip Reeve for being so daring. In fact, I must give props to Philip Reeve for creating such an intense, intriguing, and believable world despite the suspense of disbelief. And I did have to suspend my disbelief a bit. I mean, roving cities on tracks, devouring other smaller cities on tracks, following a dogma called municipal Darwinism? Ugh. But honestly, Philip takes my disbelief and has fun with it. So initial thoughts. At first, I didn't quite get that this was young adult. A lot of tropes that are riddled in most young adult novels are not present here. And the ones that are, which I will talk about in a minute, aren't enough to be detracting to the story, which overall I enjoyed. The story is fresh and unpredictable. I was shocked by the end of the first chapter whenever Valentine pushes Tom off this city, and I didn't expect that to happen at all. And I was wondering if he'd keep that kind of shock and mystery and intrigue throughout the rest of the book. Good news, he did. As far as character development goes, don't expect anything terribly complex here. Tom and Catherine are both naive and idealistic. They believe in London, their city, as England. Oh, London is my city. It should have been England. That. So Tom and Catherine are both naive and idealistic, and it goes kind of in contrast to Hester Shaw, who is untrusting and vindictive. And it's a nice balance to the other perspectives, to Tom and Catherine, who are pretty much very trusting, and that gets them in problems. They get in trouble a couple of times from people who take advantage of them, and I guess that's just part of, the character development, is to, after a while, he asks, at least Tom asks himself, hey, why should I be trusting this character or not? By the end of the book, despite the crazy things that they go through, Tom remains relatively the same person he started with. Though there are some things that do challenge his mentality, he still remains naive and idealistic and he's a humanitarian. He wants the best for everyone and doesn't want anyone to die or suffer. And that's kind of a boring trait to me. And it's kind of annoying, this trait of a hero just not wanting anybody to die, wanting everyone to live peacefully, because it's so unrealistic. Because even in the scene where these people are trying to kill him, and if they had the chance to pull the trigger, if it was a gun pointed to his head, they would definitely pull the trigger. But when he does that, he feels like remorse. And I get that feeling of remorse, but at the same time, these people would kill him too. So I feel like those feelings were out of place. I would have much rather preferred, at that moment when he was killing these people, to actually enjoy killing them. Now, I'm not saying that I enjoy killing people, or that I think people should enjoy killing people. I just think in the story it would have showed a darker side of humanity that is in all of us. If you had somebody who was trying to kill you and was making life miserable for you and actually threatened your loved ones, would you have any qualms killing them? I mean, I can't answer that question for you. I know what I would do. If someone were threatening my family, if someone were threatening a friend of mine, I know what I'd do, and I wouldn't feel bad about it. But what would you do? Would you risk the safety and the lives of your loved ones in order to preserve the life of someone else who's threatening it? And I think the question brought up in this query in my mind is more important than the question brought up here in this book. Now, I will say this, Tom at one point in the book goes through this phase of saying, I'm going to kill Valentine no matter what. Anything that I can do to kill him, I will. And that's kind of what brought that conflicting sentiment, is like, you really feel this massive animosity against this primary bad guy, but against killing his henchmen, you're kind of not. But you don't really explain that contrast very well. It just seemed out of place. But not only this, Tom, Hester, and Catherine both uncover this plot that London has that is going to destroy this city that is not on tracks. And that's kind of a cool mechanic that they work with, that Philip Reeve works with in the book. The idea is that cities that are not on tracks are somehow lesser or below cities on tracks. So I like that the cultural differences are kind of there, and it's really interesting to see. So the big conspiracy of the book is that London has developed this massive super weapon that's going to destroy a city that is not on tracks, and it's going to kill thousands of people. Now, the whole problem with this thing is that's the only way London will survive. So it's kind of cool because it gives the bad guy a reason for wanting it, But at the same time, it takes away the journey and goal that Tom has in order to stop him. Because if he does stop him, London will die. So there are some times in the story I'm like, you know, it's either kill or be killed. Like, the only way into this new land that has other cities roving on tracks that London can devour is through this city. And the only way to get through this city is to blow it up. I mean, again, it brings that whole question of what would you do? And I end up siding with the bad guy. I end up saying, you know what? If it's between blowing these thousands of people up to heaven or hell or wherever, or watching your people starve and suffer, what would you do? I just get frustrated with the main character because I'm like, listen, dude, you can't really stop that from happening. The only way, you know, the only way you're going to stop London is by destroying it and blowing up your home. And that doesn't make you the good guy either. So either way, you end up in this scenario being the bad guy. This book seems to pose the question that nothing is worth taking the life of another. But like I said, I really disagree. Some people that are alive deserve to be dead, and some people that are dead deserve to be alive. Now, maybe you disagree with me. Maybe you think that there is no reason to take another one's life. Like, absolutely not. Like, if they had a gun to your head and they were going to pull the trigger, but the roles were reversed, you wouldn't do that. You know, maybe that's just the way. And I'm not saying that that's invalid. I'm not saying that that's not a. I mean, if you think that, that's fine. I don't agree with you, but that doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't make me a bad person either. You know, I haven't killed anybody, but would I, given the chance? I'd like to think that I would, to protect somebody. The simplicity of the ideologies presented in this book are a little bit insulting because they're kind of like straw men. They're kind of basic. There's not very complex themes and ideologies. I could not relate to the character in its philosophical aspect. But that being said, I still enjoyed this book. I will say this for Philip Reeve, he is not above killing characters, and some of them were even main characters. And it was in kind of gruesome ways. There was this point in the book where Tom and Hester were being chased through this group of islands, I suppose, by this smaller city. It's like a pirate city. I was reading, I was like, dude, this character should just, and he did die. And it was gruesome too. It wasn't a glorified death. Like, he died in a bad way. I loved it so much. If you want to read this book, I won't spoil exactly how he dies. And they're also being chased by... There are several bad guys in this book, and Philip Reeve does a good job of characterizing them and giving them motivations, and for that, I really appreciate it. I really don't think there was any cookie cutter. Even though Chrome does kind of get on the cookie cutter side of bad guys, there's still a reason for him wanting to be bad. And I won't spoil this part of the book for you, but at close to the very end, on the third act of the book, he kills off this character, and man, he's got balls. Philip Reeve has balls in order to kill this character off. I was shocked that this character died. I thought this character was going to, because there's 4 books, so I thought this character was going to be in all 4 of the books, but she died. Now, she may come back. I just now thought that there is a possibility of him bringing him back, because this is a YA after all, and YA is very tropish for bringing people that are dead back, so I may just find him. I hope I don't. I want the death to be final, because that gives risk. Actual death in characters brings risk. It brings intensity to the situation. So I hope for the sake of the series, he didn't bring back this certain character. But I'll let you read and be surprised, just like I was when I read the book. As for YA tropes, there's no love triangle bullshit, no insta-love moments, and no stupid-ass kids being smarter than adults in the story. The relationships are earned and well-deserved by the end, and Tom and Hester kind of hate each other at the beginning because Tom stopped that assassination attempt that Hester is trying to kill Valentine. Now, Hester has a really good reason for trying to kill Valentine, and Tom didn't see it at first, so he kind of is conflicted about what he just did, especially after Valentine throws him off the city. He just was not expecting that Hester was right. Hester is described as being ugly and undesirable, and this slow burning attraction that Tom has at first, it's just because of how badass she is, because she really is badass. She's went through the whole of the hunting grounds by herself, on foot, trying to get into the city. And when she finally does, that's what happens. So he has a lot of admiration, and slowly that admiration turns into fondness that begins to form a bond between them. The biggest issue I had with the story was that it begins with third-person limited perspective, then it goes to first-person omniscient, and then it transfers into third-person omniscient. This happens multiple times when the bad guy has his own like chapter where he's like talking about things and like muhahaha moments. And it was just jarring at first how I was taken aback, like, oh, we're in a totally different perspective here, and it's just the voice is just a little bit difficult to swallow at times. It happens sometimes within the same chapters, and that's really not a good thing. However, as I powered through these changes in voices and writing perspectives, I realized that Mr. Philip Reeve isn't as concerned with being uniform in his writing voice and perspectives as he is with telling an original story. I can always forgive issues in writing like this if the focus of the book is to preserve its story and kind of make it a dynamic view, and for us as readers, a different way of absorbing this book. And this is, though not typical way to absorb this book, it still made sense. In the end, it didn't detract terribly other than the fact of that just change. But the story itself was made better by these scenes. So overall, I give Mortal Engines a 7.5 out of 10. It is a pleasant surprise, and I highly recommend it if you enjoy dystopian young adult novels that have high quality. There's no language, and if there is, it's mild at most. And the gruesome scenes are kind of left to a minimum, just letting your imagination do most of the work for you. When the movie does come out, I will be reviewing it in light of the novel for sure. December 18th, 2018. Here we go. So I bought the other books in the series, and let me know if you'd like me to review them. If you like the way this review is also made, let me know what you think about some of the topics that I brought up and some of the character arcs, so you know what to do. Also, and now that the review is done, I'd like to give a huge shout out to all the people who have bought my novel, Knights Without Kings. Knights Without Kings is a dark fantasy set in a medieval time period, and it is very character driven as opposed to setting driven. So if you don't really like the medieval fantasy aspect of it, it is toned a little bit down in favor of characters and their choices and the consequence that they have to those choices. So if that sounds at all interesting to you, please feel free to wander over to my Amazon page. The link's gonna be down in the description, and take a look at it. And if you like it, purchase it and let me know what you think. I'd love to talk to you about it. I am Jonathan, JM Topp, and you be safe out there. There's a bunch of crazies running around, hurting people and hurting things. Just be safe. Mind your business. Just be safe out there, and I will see you on the next time. Jonathan, signing out.
Never seen before, but deep inside you know there must be more.